Ba-da-da-da-da-da. Dungeons and Dopamine. Hi, welcome to Dungeons and Dopamine. This is the very first episode of season 2, or
2 seasons.
Dungeons and Dopamine 2nd edition.
Ooh.
Yes. I'm Jess.
I'm Bree.
We are besties.
Dungeons and Dopamine.
Yeah, that is well. That's exactly what I meant to say. Sometimes we get this together and we say the same things at the same time without practice, and sometimes we don't.
Thumbs up!
That was magical.
It was.
So if you're just starting at season 2, welcome. And we appreciate that you're here.
Yay!
We are calling this season 2 because episode 20 has just released, and we plan on making some very small, subtle changes, including just cutting down our episodes very slightly because we like talking, and sometimes people have a hard time getting through the episodes because we talk so much.
Weird. I don't know why that would be a problem.
No, not at all. So that's what we're going to do, and that's about the only change you're going to get. However, it seems perfect because we have our audio worked out, and
we have a space to record it. It's not totally done yet. It's not totally glamorous, but we're doing okay.
We're on our way.
Mm-hmm.
And
we have a Patreon now.
Yes, that's exciting. And all of our social medias have kind of, well, I don't want to say taken off, but
they exist.
They're consistent.
Mm-hmm. You're consistent.
Well, you know, I'm giving you some credit.
Yeah. Someday I'll stop being afraid of the camera.
I don't believe you.
I don't know when that happened to me.
I don't know.
Because I used to
theater.
I mean, I can get up at a board meeting and talk in front of people.
So strange.
But give me a chance to record it and play it back, and I panic and shut down.
Yeah, that's so weird. But, you know.
It's got to be improv for me, apparently.
I guess so, yeah. So hopefully you enjoy this very, very mild change. I don't know if I actually got out the description. So after episode 20, we were going to review things and see what people liked and what people didn't like. So if you're hearing this and you are someone who's on our social medias, feel free to let us know what topics you love, what topics you've hated. Hopefully that's none.
Well, what you don't like, which again should be nothing, but no, we're here for
the show's fine, but I hate the hosts.
Right. New hosts all around. But really, we're here for the constructive criticism, and we're here for the love. But I think we're ready to hear what people don't like.
Yeah.
Unless it's my husband, then he's not allowed to say anything negative.
Exactly. Ever. Yep. And we just want to be better to make your ears happier and bring you more dopamine.
Yes.
All of the dopamine.
Wherever you want it.
We will put it anywhere you need it. I do believe that was my very first promise for this show.
Mm-hmm. The original tagline, if you will.
All doped up. So we have some fabulous episodes. If you haven't listened to season 1, they're pretty amazing. Feel free to go back. But
Please
if this is where you're starting, hi, we love you.
Welcome.
And
and that's our show.
Thanks, bye.
This is the new change.
Sounded like you said deuces. Deuces.
Peace out, man.
I don't like this change.
This is the worst podcast ever.
So we host, and most people know us, and we just did a whole episode that just released last week about us.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're wondering about us, go check that out.
Episode 24. All about your hosts.
Mega important episode. So anyway,
Yeah.
have you had any good dopamine this week?
I did have some good dopamine this week. My dad has been fighting his second battle with cancer, and he finished his treatment this week.
Woohoo!
So there's still some recovery to do, and we'll do some follow-up imaging in, I think they said 6 to 8 weeks after treatment. But everything is looking positive so far, and we are looking forward to now just getting him in recovery mode.
We love you, Dave. You're the best.
The best. I do have the best
Dad.
ever, you guys.
It's true. He's also my honorary dad.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a dad, and he is very important in my life.
And also very awesome.
Yeah, but Dave is my other dad.
Because when you've known each other for 30 years, you adopt each other's parents at some point.
It's true.
She also calls
your
my
mom's
mom
my
her
best
best
friend. So
Yep.
we've been there. And I think one of your dogs at one time in its life liked me better than you.
Was it Chrissy?
It
Because
was.
She 100% did. But Pooh Bear, the cat, definitely liked me better.
That's 1,000,000% defamation to my character. Pooh Bear loved me.
If he was here,
He
would tell everybody
spit on my face.
about how I used to shove him in pop boxes and then put him in the refrigerator.
Call him Butterfly. We didn't do drugs when we were kids either. This is totally my brain.
That was just Mountain Dew and pepperoni fueled Friday night goodness.
Aw.
Probably some Jack's Pizza too.
Oh, definitely. Or maybe Pizza Hut if your mom splurged.
True.
Do you remember that time we learned that we really liked their cheesy garlic bread because they brought us the wrong order? And so we put it on the counter and picked all the mushrooms off the pizza and ate the garlic bread, and they brought us our new order, and they were like, do you still have the old order? And we're like, yeah, but we've eaten it. You still want it back? And they were like, no, and handed us our pizza and left.
I forgot about that. And now, knowing what I know now, there's a good chance that was my husband delivering us that pizza.
Whoever did it was cranky because we ate the crap out of the pizza.
They shouldn't have given it to us.
Right.
Nowadays, they wouldn't even be able to take that back.
Zach, if that was us, you deserved it. That was totally your fault.
Totally. It's the only canon that works in my brain now is that Zach delivered that pizza and yelled at us.
He was like really disappointed in us for eating cheesy garlic bread.
Probably why he waited another 20 years before he
recognized you. He was like, that's it,
her
girl.
He actually came over to yell at me that time we
And
ran
you
into
batted
each other.
your eyelashes, and he was like, oh, I'm in love.
I
Little
guess I'll
hearts
marry her
flew out of your guys'
instead.
heads.
Mm-hmm. Just like in Scott Pilgrim.
Yes. Did he already defeat all of your 7 deadly exes?
Yes.
Fabulous.
Yes, he did.
Your eyes
At least
say
one of them.
I'm lying.
At least one of them.
Perfect. I mean, who actually has 7?
Not me.
I mean, none of them are deadly.
That is definitely true.
None of my exes care that much.
No. Thank
They're
gosh.
like, yeah, bye.
Same.
Thankfully.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that would make life so much more complicated.
I really want to rewatch that movie now. Did you see that they're making a show?
I think Ryan told me that. He gets very excited about Scott Pilgrim news.
As he should. Basically changed his life.
It really did.
Mm-hmm.
He lost his keys that day.
Yep. Luckily, he was with us.
Yeah, he would have just, like, called a
Did
cat
we see
and
that
left.
movie twice that year?
Probably.
Because we saw it in the theater and at the drive-in.
Yeah. Whoa.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
My brain. So give me a second.
She totally remembers what her topic is.
I remember the topic. I'm trying to think of a good transition.
Oh. Is that one of our new things? We're gonna get good at transitions.
We're just gonna use the same transition.
Can it just be like magic sounding noise?
Did you know
Argyle Pigeon?
that would be actually fabulous? Work on that. Did you know that Scott Pilgrim loves Halloween candy?
He totally loves Halloween candy.
And bread. Bread makes you fat. Anyway, so as people hear this, it is mid-November.
Mm-hmm.
However, we are recording this in mid-October.
It is pre-Halloween for us.
Pre-Halloween, not post, as it is for our listeners.
Because we're in the future? Past? We're in the past.
This is not good. So, because I wanted to do something Halloween-y, I did. When you were younger, did you have to check your Halloween candy when you were a kid before you were allowed to eat it?
Of course. Every time.
So, did you ever find anything?
No.
Okay.
I mean, unless my mom was just taking it because she wanted it, which I feel like probably happened because that's 100% what I do to Connor.
Absolutely.
Oh, this Reese's peanut butter cup is a little
poison. Yeah. Oh, definitely. And then my parents would, do a quick once over and then take anything out that was opened.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I probably would still to this day because I don't want them to get food poisoning.
Right.
I'm more concerned with, but So there is one man who is, okay, maybe not single-handedly responsible for that, but don't fall and die, please.
Knock the whole table over.
But he didn't help. And he furthered along we just got back from trick-or-treating, and now I have to sit here and go. Sorry.
Jessica's voice box just broke.
I gotta go plug myself in. Deactivating. So the most torturous part of the entire day of Halloween was getting back with your candy and having to wait for your parents to go through it so you could see it and touch it and eat it.
Because you need to hurry up and eat your candy so you can get to bed because you have school tomorrow.
Exactly.
Which is my least favorite part about Halloween.
Sounded like you said Miley's favorite part about Halloween.
Miley loves that about Halloween.
I don't know if I want to know about Miley. So, let me tell you a little story here.
Who do I have to blame for this?
Well, let's start with a man named Ronald Clark O'Brien. We're going to call him Ronnie.
Good old Ronnie.
Ronnie was born in 1944.
Jerk.
He was... Exactly. We know all about people who were born in 1944. He was a pretty normal dude. He grew up, got married, had 2 kids. He became an optician, which I assume means he had to go to school, college, assumedly.
Some schooling. He's not as cool as an optometrist. But
no, right.
Opticians are okay, I guess.
Yeah. So, he was also deacon at his local Baptist church. So he obviously had a whole life between 1944 and the year that I'm about to talk about, which is 1974. But to be completely frank, I do not care about any of the rest of that life but this year. Unfortunately, this is the year that he had a tragedy strike. Oh. So, he took his 8-year-old son, Timothy, his 5-year-old daughter, Elizabeth, and 3 of the neighbor kids that they were good friends with, and he took them trick-or-treating. He lived in Texas in a place called Deer Park, which is kind of funny because there used to be a theme park around here called Deer Park.
I'm actually surprised that the deacon of the Baptist church is okay with trick-or-treating.
Yeah.
Because the one friend I had that was a Baptist as a child was not allowed to trick-or-treat. And that is all I can base all of my knowledge on, is one person I knew that I had to take trick-or-treating when he was 21 because he had never been before. Statistically,
in my years of research, I found that no Baptists trick-or-treat.
None.
Well, this guy didn't have a lot of problems with doing a lot of things, so,
No.
So, it was a normal night. They started their trick-or-treating. They were really excited as kids get. They were running house to house, and they decided to run up to a house that had the lights off, which we all kind of know means that there's no candy there.
Mm-hmm.
So they knocked.
Don't go there.
Don't go. So they knocked and yelled trick-or-treat, but no one came to the door, so they didn't stick around, and they took off to the next house, as one does.
As you should.
Exactly. So they moved on, and a few minutes later, Ronnie Dearest comes up with 5 pixie sticks. He's like, guys, someone popped out of that door and gave me the pixie sticks from the dark house.
Mm-hmm.
So he hands them out to these 5 kids, and shortly after this, it started to rain. So they only did make it through a couple roads in their neighborhood, and then they headed home. Bummer, but
good thing they got those random pixie sticks.
Exactly.
I have a feeling the rest of the story ends happily.
Exactly. This is a great story. The happy Halloween. So Tim gets home and immediately dives into his candy. He opens up the pixie stick and he tastes it, and he says, "This is really bitter, Dad." So his dad gives him a glass of Kool-Aid and says, "Just wash it down and you'll be fine." So he drinks the Kool-Aid and immediately says, "I don't feel good." And he runs to the bathroom and he starts throwing up. By the time Ronnie got to the bathroom to check on him, his son had begun to convulse.
Oh.
And he was holding his son when he just went limp in his arms and was gone. So the autopsy, before they could even open up the body, revealed he had been poisoned with cyanide, which apparently gives off an almond scent.
Oh.
And the boy's mouth smelled like almond.
Okay,
So they knew. Yep. When they examined the pixie stick closer, they found it had enough cyanide to kill 2 grown men, which is probably why it worked so quickly on this poor kid.
Mm-hmm.
They took a look at the pixie stick, and it had been tampered with and then closed up and stapled shut, which immediately should have set off an alarm, but apparently in the 70s didn't.
You didn't check the candy in the 70s.
Yeah, apparently. So the staple actually did save one of the neighbor boys' lives, because he was found asleep in bed that night with the pixie stick in his hand, but he couldn't have eaten it because he wasn't able to get that staple out.
Oh, good.
And so
Tim, all 5 pixie sticks were contaminated?
They were all contaminated.
Okay.
And thankfully, I mean, that's not really what I mean, but Tim was the only one to eat them.
Okay.
So he was the only one to get sick or pass away, thankfully. I mean, not for his parents, but you know what I mean.
Right. At least it wasn't all 5 children.
Exactly. So, of course, this became an incredibly terrifying story for the locals.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was so sensational that it became a really big story for the national public. I keep hitting the mic. They talked to Ronnie, and he said that at first that he didn't remember which house he got the pixie sticks from. So the police put a little bit of pressure on him. He did remember that he couldn't see the face of the person that handed out the handy sticks.
That was the first problem. It was, take these handy sticks.
They're full of cyanide. You're going to love them.
They're just like pixie sticks, but they kill people.
It's really handy.
We're awful people.
Awful. This goes on to Dark Dungeons.
Season 2.
The dark season. So he does remember that the door opened, a hairy arm came out of the door, like a man's arm, handed him the 5 pixie sticks.
Bigfoot.
Or hairy hand from the folklore.
Oh, yeah. Going back to the early episodes now.
Back to season 1.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. So, of course, the police put a little bit more pressure on dear old Ronnie and said, you've got to give us more than this. He killed your kid. You need to point him out. So Ronnie said, well, oh, yeah, it was that house. And he points to it and tells the police. So the police go to the house, and the man who owns the house isn't there. So they go to his work, and they arrest him. But the mystery man had a rock-solid alibi. He had been at work that night. 200 people could confirm that he was at work that night, and that his timesheet corroborated the story. Mm-hmm. So he said, well, my wife and my daughter were home, and they ran out of candy pretty early, so they turned off the light and went to bed. So now the police were like, okay, something's real fishy here. In the meantime of all of this weirdness, Ronnie was acting real weird himself.
I'm not trusting Ronnie so far.
Ronnie's
maybe
bad.
It's because you prefaced it with him being awful.
Well, I mean, anyway.
But he's pretty sus.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, just going back, if my kid took a big old swig of a pixie stick and said, this tastes bitter, I would be like, give me that right now.
Don't
what is
swallow,
going on?
open your mouth, spit it out.
Because if there is one thing a pixie stick should never be, it's bitter.
Yeah. And we're like pros at pixie sticks.
And I mean, I guess in the 70s, they hadn't had like the anthrax scare yet. So
Fair.
Maybe they weren't super concerned about strange bitter powders. But,
yeah.
Also, I thought you were going to say it was cocaine, not cyanide, which would have made a much better story.
Timmy had the night of his life. No, unfortunately, it was cyanide. So, Ronnie, dearest, was acting really weird. He seemed to be really liking all the attention he was getting from his child's death.
Gross.
He wrote a song for the boy's funeral, and the night of the boy's funeral, so they'd already gone to the funeral, and all of his relatives had gone back to his house, and he was furious with them because they would not stay awake to watch the recording of the song. That's so weird.
Yeah.
I hate him for that.
Somebody's going to see this and I'm going to make it big.
It's so stupid. Yeah, anyway. Something good's got to come from this.
Look how cool I am, guys. I wrote this song.
The police at this point obviously were starting to get some funky feels from Ronnie Dearest. So they started researching him. They knew that he was a great deal in debt. He was approximately $100,000, which at the time,
that's a lot of money.
Nowadays it would equal $590,000.
Holy cow.
So that's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So they found out that in January of that year, Ronnie had taken out a insurance policy on both of his children, $10,000 each, and he had upped it by $20,000 more the month before Halloween. So sorry.
That's just such a small amount of money.
To kill your
right. Like, it doesn't
even
fixing your
obliterate
life.
his debt. Yeah. It just takes a small chunk of it.
Yeah.
Anyway. So then it was recorded. The police found out that he had called at 9 a.m. the morning after Timothy died to ask about how to claim his insurance. 9 a.m. the day after your son died. I'm pretty sure.
Did you just open? Because I have an important question.
Exactly.
My son died approximately 7 hours ago, and I'm wondering when I can get his insurance money. Thanks.
I'd like to come and get that. Also, could you just get a check ready for my daughter?
Can you just go to the bank and get it in cash, please? I'll be there.
Bring it to me
at
in a
noon.
briefcase. Yes. So, that was thankfully enough to grant a search warrant of the O'Brien household, where they found a pair of scissors with plastic residue that was the same plastic residue that was found on the Pixie Six. They arrested O'Brien and brought him in for questioning. I don't know if that's arrest or if they just brought him in, whatever it is. It was policey and they questioned him.
They at least got him into the precinct.
Exactly. So, really, he was really coy during questioning. He didn't give them a lot of details, but they went on to investigate and find out that he was in a community college course at this point and had asked a lot of questions such as, is cyanide more lethal or is there another poison? And then a worker at a chemical company,
which is a new type of chemical medical company.
It didn't work. And a guy from a chemical company testified that someone had come out to buy cyanide. He was wearing a blue smock, and like a doctor would wear.
Mm-hmm.
And he left when he found out that he had to buy at least 5 pounds at that time. Like, you couldn't buy less than that.
They're not just giving away small amounts of
cyanide.
cyanide.
Give you 6 ounces.
So you can poison people.
Yeah. So, of course, him being an optician. Of course, him being an optician, he wore that as a uniform for work. This was before DNA testing. So, unfortunately, they couldn't just lock the case in. But they did put him on trial. Like I said, he really liked the attention. And when he would get interviewed and stuff, he was trying to stir up the country by saying, like, there is a bad man out there, or he is the candy man, and he is trying to kill our children. And, like, trying to spread fear and chaos. And, of course, he just so happened to get this guy's kid. What a coincidence.
Yeah.
So, in June of 1975, the jury adjourned to talk about Ronnie and his guilt. He pled not guilty, of course.
Of course.
And 46 minutes later, they came back, said 1 count of capital murder, 4 counts of attempted murder. Bye. They sentenced him to death by electric chair. So he between when he was supposed to be electrocuted and when he was actually
sentenced?
No, deathed. They ruled in court in Texas that the electrical chair was inhumane.
Okay.
So he was actually given the lethal injection. 300 people showed up the day he was executed. That's the word I was looking for.
Deathed. The day he was deathed.
The day he was deathed. We all have the death today. But so 300 people showed up and threw Halloween candy at anti-death penalty protesters. So
that's weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
How am I going to make this day memorable? I'm really mad at this guy that's dying. He's an awful person. So I'm going to take it out at these protesters by throwing candy at them.
I mean, they didn't have a better use for the candy. At that point, no one wanted their kids to eat the candy.
So, did he ever admit that he had done it?
I don't think so.
Did he continue to stir up trouble?
He blamed the candy man for this whole thing, which is now what he's called, the candy man.
Fair.
Now, just a little quick, fun fact, I guess. Around Halloween, every year there are stories of tainted candy, but the actual cases of them are so few and far between. One of the most recent cases was in 2000, when a man was charged with putting needles into Snickers bars. But the worst, I guess, incident that happened was a teenager who got a slight prick from it. Which is, I mean,
still terrifying,
yes,
but not happening every Halloween across the country in every bag of candy.
There's not been one death that came from Halloween candy being tampered with at all, basically.
Besides
So,
the one guy that killed his kid.
Stupid O'Brien.
Was he trying to kill all 5 of them?
He wanted to kill his kids. That was his main goal for the insurance. He poisoned all 5 of them, or tried to poison all 5 of them, because he didn't want it to seem suspicious.
Ah, yeah.
What?
Except that you came back with stapled pixie. Like, he didn't even...
Seriously.
He stapled them?
Yeah.
Gosh.
He was really dumb. He was a horrible human being. I can't imagine hurting my child.
I feel like he'd fit in really well with the political style of today.
Maybe,
where he did something awful and then he tries to make it about something else.
Yes.
Look the other way.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I'm just appalled by candy prices nowadays.
Right. Gosh, I hate this story.
Yeah, I know. And I don't love to talk about murderers, or especially when they hurt children. But I wanted to do something Halloween-ish.
Right.
And
no, I think this is good because I'll be honest, I was very paranoid about candy for a long time until I saw a Facebook meme that was basically like, hey, drugs are expensive, nobody wants to give them to your children.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, oh, that's true. Drugs are expensive. Nobody wants to give those away.
Last year on TikTok, there was this huge trend about, you're not going to believe what I found in my Snickers bar. And they would show the Snickers bar with a kitchen knife in it or an axe or something.
I know there was a thing a few years ago where those candy, it was actual candy, the skeleton bones ones went around and it was these are actually drugs. And I was like, no, those are just candy.
I mean, once again, I would take away any open candy from your kids.
Fair.
Honestly, if you're not worried about poisoning, you should maybe still be concerned about food poisoning.
Right. Or dirt or
whatever. You don't know.
Maybe
dirty
somebody
people
licked
hands.
it.
Yeah.
Who knows?
But I don't think it's quite the issue that it was when we were kids.
Right.
You know who doesn't eat candy?
Trees.
Trees.
Trees hate candy. They told me.
Yeah.
Did you know that trees can talk to each other?
No.
So here's something cool. Trees can talk to each other.
What?
I'm going to preface this because I know right now I sound like a crazy hippie, which is exactly what I thought 6 approximately years ago when 2 separate people told me that trees can talk to each other. And I remember being very irritated at the time, both because it was being told to us when we were taking trees down at our house, but also because I had a 1-year-old at the time, so basically everything irritated me. And I was definitely not leaning towards the hippie spectrum at that time, besides the fact that I was cloth diapering.
Sure.
But beyond that, I was not ready to embrace the hippie lifestyle. We had been living in our woods for a year. We had to take these trees down. We had these 2 hemlock trees, sumac trees. I don't know the difference. They were right next to our house. One was overtaking our back deck and was full of spiders. And I, again, did not like spiders back then either because I didn't have this podcast, so I hadn't had a chance to research them. And the other tree was at the front of our house and was providing a bridge for the flying squirrels to get into our attic.
Someday you'll have to share that story.
I had already cleared out approximately 10 flying squirrels. They are very cute. So we could not murder them. They had to be relocated.
It might have been the same one every time.
It could have been. So we had to take these trees down. And 2 separate people, one being a relative of my uncle's. Nope. 2 separate people, one of them being a relative of my husband, and one being the people we had actually bought our house from, saw that we were taking down these trees and told us to be gentle because the trees communicate. They're all a system. You know, if you hurt one, you hurt them all. And I was not ready to hear that. Was very irritated by it. And now, 6 years later, I have decided that it was time to dig into that topic. Because I would consider myself at this point a little bit more hippie on the square to hippie spectrum. It's the only word I could come up with that would be the opposite of hippie.
It's beautiful.
And you guys, this was so easy. I did not even have to get on Google Scholar. I went straight to the Google machine, which brought up one article from the Smithsonian magazine, smithsonianmag.com, that literally covered everything I could have hoped to read about this topic. So I was going to do this in true Jessica fashion. I was going to give you all of the hippy dippy woo woo trees communicate stuff, and then I was going to give you like the actual scientific stuff and debunk it all. This article did it for me. So if we had time, I would probably just go read this whole article to you, but we don't have time because it was very long.
New format.
Yeah. now Bree just reads to everybody. But I will link it when this episode premieres. Premieres?
Sure.
Yeah, we premiere
We're
things.
that important.
Yeah. And the article is based basically on this one man who wrote a book called The Hidden Life of Trees, What They Feel and How They Communicate. His name is Peter Wohlleben, and he's German, and he was a forester at one point. So big box forester. You know, we've been, even in my job at the township or growing up, everybody probably heard, you know, trees have to be forested. You have to clear them out. Sometimes clear out the big trees so the little trees can get sun and nutrients. And I mean, our township just went and logged all of our properties. So Mr. Peter was doing that, and the longer he was in the field, the more he started to question what they were doing, if it was necessary. He started to get that hippie pull and start to feel for these trees. And he quit his foresting job and moved out to be basically a forest ranger with his wife in a cabin in the middle of the woods. Very similar to my favorite character from Prodigal Summer when I talked about the coyotes. So instead of going to save the coyotes, he went to save the trees. And he began to notice that even the stumps of the dead trees were still being kept alive. And the only way, logically, that this could happen would be if the trees are basically sharing nutrients through their roots. So him and these other researchers, this article is this is true. It has been scientifically proven, not just by this old hippie, but by another old hippie lady that I'll talk about in a minute, but also by scientific research and other studies that I probably could have looked up if I needed to, but I didn't have to because the Smithsonian did it for me. So he comes across this old stump that has probably been a stump for centuries now. And he scrapes away a little bit of the top and notices that it's still green and thriving underneath. And he starts to do more research. This other woman, what is her name?
Woman.
Okay, so Peter and a woman named Suzanne Simard start paying attention to these trees, and they're very hippie about it. Peter even says he uses words like communicate and community and caring about each other when he talks about the trees, because he wants to give them a personality, because he's trying to get more people to care about these trees. So he does admit that he's very flowery with his language about it, and I would argue that Suzanne probably is too. I would definitely say they're both on the hippie spectrum. But they also start to notice that nutrients or things that are showing up in trees down the way, they could only come from trees upstream. So one of the studies talks about salmon. So there are nutrients or chemicals that are appearing in these trees that are not on the river, but it could only come from like a salmon
I'm glad you
decaying.
didn't say that a salmon was in the tree. I'm like,
It swims through the roots.
where's she going?
And carries all of its fish stuff. No, when the salmon dies on the side of a river or ends up on the riverbank, it decays and gets broken down and it ends up in the roots of these trees. But then these roots are passing it along up through the root system. So trees that are not on the river or not along the riverside are still showing these nutrients from this salmon. There were also studies that talk about giraffes eat acacia leaves, and the trees will actually send out like these electrical pulses or this distress signal when a giraffe comes up and starts munching on the leaves. And this distress signal that gets sent out tells the trees around it to start producing tannins, which can kill a giraffe in large amounts. And so all the trees around it are like, oh no, the giraffes are coming, and they start producing more tannins just naturally. And the giraffes know this, and giraffes will actually eat upwind, or they'll continue when they're eating, they'll move upwind to continue eating because they know that the trees downwind are reacting to being eaten and are putting nutrients in the leaves that they can't eat. They've noticed it with bugs. So if a tree or a system of trees starts to be infested by an insect, it can actually produce a different type of, or put more sugar or whatever into its sap to attract a predator insect that then takes care of the insect that's invading the trees.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
That's wild.
So these trees are communicating.
Does this work for all trees?
So Suzanne's theory is there is a mother tree. So you're probably looking for like a big old beech tree, a big old king oak tree in the middle of the forest. And it kind of, I don't want to say, it doesn't control the rest of the forest, but that's kind of...
I am terrified.
It sends out the signals, it takes care of the forest around it. So the way they worded it, it can be all trees. It's not just the oak trees that will communicate with oak trees. They'll communicate...
Or the pine trees with pines.
Right. They'll communicate with all the trees around them. They also bring fungus into this. So mushrooms obviously grow on the floor of the forest. And the mushrooms have formed a symbiotic relationship with the roots of the trees and can actually help the trees determine what is going on above ground. So if they need to, if there's insects that are invading down the road, they can learn it through the fungus. They'll take the sugar that's produced in their roots. The fungus will feed off that, but part of that relationship is actually kind of reading the nutrient levels in the roots and passing it along. So while we've spent all of our lives being told that, big dumb old trees, they just need to, we have to keep them in line, we have to cut them down so that the new trees can grow, Mr. Hippie Peter is discovering that it's the big trees that are actually helping keep the little trees alive because they're sending their nutrients and the sugar and the helping do the processes through the roots. So it's not about taking out the biggest trees in the forest because those trees are actually providing care to the smaller trees, which they used a lot of, like I said, flowery language. Suzanne talked about the mother trees. Peter talked about how the little trees will suckle from the mother trees. I think that's a little further than even my hippy dippy brain would go. And that's kind of when I tried to find, or when the article, I didn't even have to go try to find. So when the article went out and talked to like research scientists about this research that Peter and Suzanne had, none of them denied it. All of the research supports and proves that the trees do have this relationship and are doing these things. Their only complaint was the language that was used.
Sure.
So the hardcore research scientists aren't saying that the trees don't feed each other, but they're saying that it's not a mother tree letting its young suckle from it. It's more that, in nature, something responds to a trigger.
I'm going to make the formal request right now that you never use those words again. Thank you.
Agreed. So, and this, the reason I liked this study so much and the reason I liked this article so much is it really made my brain happy, because it's a kind of a mix of the magical world and the research world, right? We know that ecosystems exist and symbiotic relationships exist and parasitic relationships exist, and there's always a give and take, and that we need these things in the world to keep our ecosystems going. So if you remove coyotes, it ruins the whole system, right? But we've always just attributed this to animals, maybe insects. Sometimes we give them that sort of brain power. But before that, we had never put it in nature. And again, the scientists and even myself, I'm not saying that nature is listening and it's all interconnected and it's providing care for the trees around it, but it is all wired together. And there are still things that make a tree have a distress signal that it can then use to protect itself or protect a tree down the line. I just think that's incredible that real, legitimate science can still feel a little magical, because maybe the trees aren't actually talking to each other, but it kind of feels like they are. And Mr. Peter Woolard would say they are.
He would say it like kind of a weirdo, though.
Oh, you should. In fact, let me read you some of the things. I mean, yeah, it did get very flowery when we were talking about this Peter Woolard. The article, and I almost gave up at this point. I'm really glad I finished, but the article starts, this is like the third or fourth paragraph. It says, there is now a substantial body of scientific evidence that refutes that idea. It shows instead that trees of the same species are communal and will often form alliances with trees of other species. Forest trees have evolved to live in a cooperative, interdependent relationships maintained by communication and a collective intelligence similar to an insect colony. These soaring columns of living wood draw the eye upward to their outspreading crowns, but the real action is taking place underground, just inches below our feet. That is the most dramatic nature movie I've ever heard of, and it's all about roots and funguses. So I'm not there yet on the square to hippie spectrum, but I'd still put myself probably somewhere in the middle there, where I believe the trees are taking care of each other, but only because they're wired to take care of each other.
If you ever get there, could you, keep it to yourself?
No. That'll be season 3 of Dungeons and Dopamine, when Bree just goes full hippie and starts talking about Mother Earth and its suckling trees.
What did I say? Worse word. I would rather hear the word moist.
So next week I'll have to talk about the moist fungus community in the forest.
Guys, this podcast is over.
There will be no season 2.
I drew a little infographic about the communicating trees, but that's really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, And it makes sense when you think about it scientifically and sort of take out the, as you say, woo-woo of it.
Mm-hmm.
Woo-woo.
Woo-woo. Kind of goes back to the lightning bugs, the fireflies that all synchronize.
Yeah.
And it looks like magic because why else would bugs be lighting their butts up all at the same time, synchronized like that? But it's just the way they're wired. It's just the way nature is made.
It's the way nature intended it.
Yeah. and that can go, you can bring that spiritually or religiously if that's who you are, or you can stay with the research scientists that refuse to talk about trees communicating and just talk about it being normal scientific reactions.
I love it. And I hope that they start every conversation with boo-rah. That is all I have to say about that.
They did also talk about how the world of trees moved very slowly. And all I could think about is Tolkien must be way ahead of these research scientists because he knew that the Ents moved very slowly and that tree time is much slower than human time.
I dig it. Not the trees,
Don't.
because I don't want them to come for me, whether it's slow or not. I intend to die in my house, so the trees could definitely come for me before that.
Now they know. You've told them. They can hear you.
Shoot.
They're communicating as we speak, sending all of their little electrical signals through the roots in the trees.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say something clever, and I have absolutely nothing. I believe we covered once before how I have nothing in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe we covered last episode and season, that I'm dumb.
Yes. I mean, yeah.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Breeze feels. So, I hope everyone enjoyed the format. I also hope I didn't just cut you off.
You did. It was awful. You ruined everything.
I'm crying, and I hate your guts.
I know it. I knew it.
Shut up.
Damn it.
If my mom there's a reason that I thought that. If my kid overhears that, she will go, Mom!
You shouldn't say that to your friends.
She will be very upset with me. I will have let her down.
Connor came running up to me one time to tell me that somebody had said the S word, and he was very upset about it. And I was like, what did they say to you? And he was like, the S word. And I was like, what's the S word? He said, stupid.
He also ratted me out once.
That's true.
I cursed.
It was the big one too.
It was a big one, and I was just having a conversation with Ryan, and it was just in the conversation. Carly heard it, and she was like, "Mom!" And then she said, "Connor, my mom just cursed," and because they were playing on their tablets together, and then I heard Connor yell, "Mom!" Carly's mom just cursed. And then we heard Brie laugh.
And that is the weirdest part about when your children are old enough to call each other on their tablets.
Remember, there are other ears that can hear everything happening.
Yeah. And I never know if their cameras are on.
Right.
And I don't always wear pants at home.
Right.
So,
Same.
Sorry if your daughter ever sees that.
I mean, she doesn't care.
She'd be like, my mom doesn't wear pants either.
Exactly.
And again, this
Kids are
podcast
rats.
took a weird turn.
It's an OnlyFans.
OnlyFans, here we come.
Check us out on Patreon or OnlyFans.
Where we only put content of Jessica cursing without pants on.
And it's not going to be on camera. I'm just going to be sitting in a chair off camera.
Saying curse words.
I'll write them on a whiteboard.
Perfect.
So I hope everybody had a good Halloween.
And are looking forward to the upcoming holiday season.
Yeah.
This will be almost Thanksgiving by the
Yeah.
time this episode premieres.
It's Ryan's favorite holiday.
Really?
He likes the colors and the decorations, and he really likes our very, very, very simple family tradition of it's just a very tiny family gathering, and we play like Jackbox games and stuff after we eat. It's
awesome.
magical, and like the dishes are all done, the kitchen's clean by the end of it. It's pretty magical.
We host Thanksgiving a lot of the times, basically for the same reasons, like because we keep it pretty simple.
Yeah.
It's very laid back. Zach usually does a turkey, but that's only because he likes to cook. Or smoke or grill or whatever, however he decides to do the turkey that year. And then we watch movies or play games. And the house is clean because I cleaned it within an inch of its life to get to that day.
Exactly.
And my stepmom refuses to leave my house with dirty dishes. So she does all our dishes and takes care of the house. And I have a clean house to decorate for Christmas the next day.
I cook all the sides, and that's it.
Everybody eats on paper plates.
Yep, it's beautiful.
And plastic silverware, and it all goes in the garbage. Yes.
So I'm pretty sure you're going to hear from us at least once more before Thanksgiving, but tell us about your Thanksgiving traditions.
Yeah.
We want to know.
Especially if you have new or different traditions.
Yeah, love that.
My focus over the last year or so has been figuring out what our actual family traditions are going to be instead of what our bigger family traditions have been. We're working on creating our own nuclear family traditions.
We had a great one, and then someone had to go and screw it all up and change everything about our lives, and so we're creating new ones.
Same.
Ugh. So, happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
This has been Dungeons and Dopamine Podcast.
You can listen to us.
You can.
Anywhere you stream.
Do anything you put your mind to.
Or you can listen to us anywhere you stream podcasts and even on YouTube.
You can support us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/DungeonsDopamine.
Whatever / you usually use for your web addresses.
It's the traditional /.
Ooh, we could just say / in the future.
Let's say /. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You can also find us on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. You can find our Reddit. We don't do anything with it, but it's there.
And if you find it and you encourage us to do something, we will.
Yeah.
It's just that literally no one's ever gone there.
Yeah.
You can reach out to us via any of those social medias, or you can reach us at dungeonsdopamine@yahoo.com.
Dungeons and Dopamine is edited and published by Argyle Pigeon Productions, and we would be lost without them.
And they're so happy we've changed to this new format. But we love you. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye.
Bye.